Hello and welcome to Simply Sport with me Neeraj Prabhu. Today in our studio we have a very special guest, an Olympian, a Goan origin sports personality but who has gone on to represent New Zealand in boxing. She was there at London 2012. She is Sionas Fernandez. Siona, welcome to our studio. Thanks for taking time off from your busy schedule and coming here. Siona, not many Goans know about you. Tell us about your incredible journey to the top level of boxing and starting from Goa, that you have your Goan origins. So in brief.
That's going to be hard in brief, but first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. My journey has been pretty much a roller coaster, but like I say, it's the best ride I've ever had. So starting in Goa, which is my roots, and it's hard to deny that because I've studied here. And then I moved to Bangalore for about 7 years, where I studied my master's as well and simultaneously did my Bharatanatyam. But I've got to say I started the violin and the sporting career in Goa, where I represented Goan State for basketball for about a few years, and then also played table tennis state level and athletics, javelin, shot put, yeah. So there was a lot of sporting career for me right from the start, and I was one of the probables selected for the Asian School Games at the Indian for the Indian team back then, but I didn't take it up and I didn't go to the selection. So it was more like, I think I have to study. You know, I was young and stuff like that. So then I moved to Bangalore and carried on with my my dance career, and did my master's in psychology simultaneously. And after following which, within the month, I think I just flew to New Zealand unknowingly, because my dad gave me an ultimatum: next month you're in New Zealand, and that was it. So that was my journey from India to New Zealand.
And into boxing? How about that?
Into boxing, pretty much took me on board because I had nothing else to do in New Zealand, so I started working as a social worker and there was nothing else for me to do. So being a very active sort of person, I found a little bit of extra time and I needed to keep myself busy, and going to the gym was a part of it. And there was a boxing gym right next to our main gym that I now work for. It's called Les Mills. That drew my attention, you know, it caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, maybe I might not be very good at this sport. So I'll take it up and I'll give it a go. And I saw a whole group fitness class hitting the bags, and it was pretty exciting to watch. So when I took it on board and tried it myself, I ended up being pretty hard out at the bag and got noticed as someone who has got some potential maybe to be trained for a future in the sport. And that's how it took a toll. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow. And what kind of format does New Zealand have for boxing? Here we see pretty much state-based. They have all the associations in different states. Then we have federation, and that's how it is here. How is it in New Zealand?
Pretty similar, not too different. I think in New Zealand we have more club-based, so you have registered
boxing clubs.
Boxing clubs. They have to be registered if you want to be at the amateur level. And from there you compete on like you have a state level championship. We have, you know, the same, we have the North Island and the South Island championships, and then you have the entire country, the championships of the whole country, so you have your national champs. From there you have a separate trials, so you may be the national champion, but you may not necessarily represent New Zealand. Okay, so you have a separate trials for the team. If you lose at the trials and you might be the national champ, you're still not picked for the team. And saying that, if you win at the trials and you're in the team, that does not mean you are the champion of the national champ. So they do have these quite separate components. So you got to win every fight kind of thing to make your way into the team. There's a lot more credibility to that. And saying that, that's pretty much how we run it in New Zealand, yeah.
And obviously you must have won the trials as well as your national championships, because you made it to London 2012. How was the experience of representing New Zealand at the Olympics?
Well, to be quite honest, it's overwhelming during the stay at the village and in London, but the years of hard work that you put in is just like every other day. You know, you just got to sweat it out, go through the pain, endure everything that you want to work for. And that doesn't change even if you know that you're going to an Olympic Games. I think it just becomes more responsibility. You just get more focused. You're just like, okay, right now I have to be the best I can, you know. So there's a lot more hard work. There's a lot more responsibility when you know you've got this road laid out in front of you. So it's not all rosy, you know, until you get there. I think the fun part of it starts after you know you've done well and it's all over now. And from there on, you just sit back and you just go over the entire journey.
How many years did it take for you to get into the Olympics team?
Well, that's a question everyone keeps asking me. It took me 3 years to make it to the Olympic Games.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah, within 2 years, and then I was selected. Yeah.
Incredibly talented, very hardworking. How do you describe yourself?
I think it's a combination of hard work, definitely, most definitely. I think I really work very hard, can't deny that. But it's a cross between, not talent, but I think my dance has really assisted me with the footwork that is in boxing, agility, the movement, the speed, that's all cross-trained for me. So I think when I did learn boxing, it wasn't hard. It wasn't a harder road for me because I had more skills in comparison to someone who's just beginning. So being physical, being athletic, right in Goa, and right starting my dance in Goa, I think then transitioned quite easily to the boxing field. And that made my life a lot easier.
Did a thought cross your mind that you could have represented India maybe?
Not when I was in India. Definitely not. I didn't think about boxing either, so it wasn't something that I would have thought about when I was in India. When I went to New Zealand, I didn't think about it, even though I represented New Zealand. It's more like you represent yourself, even though you're in another country. The journey was very personal for me to take up a sport like this, and I think it didn't matter which country you fight for, you know, but your roots are always your roots, and I always call myself a Goan.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Goa, do you miss Goa at times maybe?
Yes, I think just knowing that I was coming to Goa after 7 years, the last month I was dreaming of chorisa and then, you know, where's the poder, what's he got in his basket today, I want to have some poi, and I've been eating a lot of pois from Cafe Central, I've got to say that. So you do tend to miss home, and I think our culture is something to be missed because you don't get it anywhere.
You say you come here after 7 years, so
Yeah.
has Goa changed for good or bad?
That's a very political question.
Let us go with the sports scenario.
Well, with the sports scenario, I think it has developed. Okay, it's still raw. It's still raw. Like I attended the boxing last night, and you were there. So it's great to see that the athletes have got heart. You can't train people to have heart, but you can train people to have skill, and lay out a structure for them that can better that. But you can't train anybody to have heart, to work that last 30 seconds when everything's falling away. So that's something I've noticed in the Goan athletes. They all fought with heart. And whatever they do it, you know, with everything they have, which is great. I do think they have a loophole a little bit in terms of the conditioning systems. So I think a little more focus on conditioning of the athletes overall.
The physical conditioning?
The physical conditioning, probably a little bit of the mental makeup along the lines, I think would benefit the Goan athletes a lot more to get them up to the level of international standards. And I think other than that, I think they're all pretty well off, yeah. They're pretty good, well taken care of, definitely.
Goa recently held the Lusophonia Games, and we have had now world-class infrastructure on the face of it. So how do you see Goa developing now in the future, given that you come from New Zealand, which is also quite a sporting country and a very small country, but still a better sporting culture than India. So for Goa to diversify from football and grow in other sports, what do you suggest?
Well, I think Goa is developing, like your question, just carrying on from the last question, what I've noticed is that there's a lot more respect to sporting personalities nowadays, which I think was not there in the past, and that's the reason I didn't carry on with the probables for basketball, because people looked at sports quite differently and athletes quite differently, and now with the hosting of the Lusophonia Games, even though it's just a start, you've got to start somewhere, and Goa's already made that start. So for the rest to follow, I mean, I've just heard in random conversations, there's a lot more sporting events that are bound to take place in Goa in this year and in the future. So you're only going to get better from there. You couldn't get worse. So, you know, it's definitely moving in the right direction, and more emphasis will automatically lead to better stadiums. That's always happening already. And hopefully better centers to get the levels of the athletes up and running with the international standards.
Olympics is the pinnacle for any sports person. So obviously after representing in Olympics, is there a feeling that what next for you in boxing now?
Probably not boxing. Like I said to you before, I shared earlier, if I did continue competing, it might be turning professional, but it's not something that I've had a long enough thought about, you know. So I think I've been there, done that. I'm just one of those people who walk through different phases in life. You know, I never knew I was going to box, and that's another phase down and dusted with my life. So I do tend to go back to my roots quite a bit, and I think getting back into Bharatanatyam would be something that I'm looking forward to in New Zealand. Just unleashing the Indian side of me in the Western culture, yeah.
Is it that you want a new challenge, like as you were saying about the professional boxing? It's entirely different to the amateur boxing that you have done. So what sort of a challenge it would be for you?
Oh, I think it would be definitely a challenge to go professional, but at the same time, it helps funding for the sport as well. I mean, we did have a lot of payments to make ourselves towards amateur sport, and that's where India is a lot more advanced. You know, you guys support your athletes quite a bit. We didn't get a lot of support in New Zealand. So for me to do that for another 4 years for an Olympic Games is definitely a big no. I won't be able to sustain myself financially. So professional it's easier to sustain yourself financially because you get money when you fight. Right. The sport is different. You know, you're a bit older. You fit more into a professional sport rather than an amateur sport. So there are a couple of things that draw me towards professional games. Really, yeah.
These days we see a lot of mixed martial arts coming on and getting a lot of TV time. Do you think boxing has threat from mixed martial arts for TV time?
For TV time?
As an entertainment product?
Well, to be quite honest, I don't really think so. I think they're both quite different, and only fighters understand the technicalities and everything that go for each sport. They're both quite different arts, you know. So I think they both have equal viewage and equal number of fans. So I'm sure everyone makes their own pick.
Yeah. Right. You must have met India's best Mary Kom, the boxing icon. So, how memorable has it been to interact with her? What have you discussed, if at all?